What is going on, guys? It is March 31st. We are getting close to the NFL draft. I am very excited. Thank you for joining me, everybody, here on Fantasy Daily. I am ready to go. Good morning to you all if you're listening to me on this fine March 31st morning. I got a good show for you guys tonight. I'm very excited. Or this morning, sorry. I'm used to saying tonight. I got a good show for you guys. I am very, very excited. I am filming this the night before, so I'm filming this on the 30th. I'm very exhausted, much like always, from doing all this and putting all this together before I can get on here and really jump through to it. But I got a super fun show for you guys today. I'm really excited. I got some small news for you, a couple pieces. We're going to talk about the NFL change in the schedule. And then I'm going to get right into my way too early gold team. So I know some of you guys have been talking to me in person. I've been teasing a little bit, saying I'm going to do this show. I'm going to put this episode together, and this is going to be one of my favorite episodes that I'm doing. So it's finally here. I've been teasing it for a little while. But this is my way too early pre-draft, post-free agency gold team, the team that you're going to want to go into next year. For your drafts and for your dynasty teams if you want to trade for them. These are the people who I think are low price for what you can, get in return. You're going to pay a low price to get this person and somebody else, and you're going to want both pieces of that. All right, so let's get right into it. I'm going to try to steamroll all the way through this stuff for you guys. Like I said, I'm exhausted, but I want to make sure that I get through all this, so I'm not sure where the episode's going to land today in terms of length. So we'll see where it ends up. Boom. First thing that we get today is a little bit of news, and now I'm going to cover the news that I haven't been able to cover for the past couple of days when I haven't been here. And the first piece of news that I want to say is that the Patriots came out and said that they won't pursue Jimmy G. And like I said, I believe on my last episode, or at least the episode before that, I feel like that is solely contract based. So if there was a way that Patriots were pigeon-toed before draft where they couldn't do anything, they really couldn't move up, and they knew they were looking at, whoever's at pick 15, I think they make some room for Jimmy G. So as much as the cap space and all this, I still think that there's implications that Jimmy G can get moved, and I wouldn't be surprised if that were to be the outcome. On my last episode, I said that Willie Snead went to the Raiders. To the Ravens. I just want to correct that. He went to the Raiders, not the Ravens. So I just wanted to jump that in there. Matt Breida signed with Miami. So Matt Breida's over there doing his thing over from San Francisco. So the San Francisco backfield kind of clears up a little bit. I'm drawing a blank on the name. But the backfield in San Francisco dries up a little bit to kind of make room for the backs who were over there last year. I believe Jeff Wilson is still there. I'm not 100% sure if Jeff Wilson is still there. Just taking a look at my rankings right now. Raheem Mostert, that's the name I was drawing a blank on. So Matt Breida leaving. I'm not sure about Jeff Wilson if he's still there, but that kind of shoots Raheem Mostert up the rankings a little bit. When it comes to the San Francisco backfield, because we're still not sure what they're going to do with quarterback, then we're not sure who's the star is going to be, but all we know is that San Francisco running backs are usually highly productive, so if there's less competition in San Francisco, I'm definitely taking another look at Raheem Mostert come the beginning of the season and seeing what that depth chart looks like. Tevin Coleman has signed with the Jets, another former San Francisco player. This looks like a depth move to me. They're another one of those teams that's just loaded at running back right now, so it doesn't really, give any implications to what's going to happen towards the beginning of the season, so we're going to have to wait and see on the Jets backfield. But even when it gets to that point, I'm not sure if any of us are actually buying into the Jets backfield. That Kalen Ballage to Pittsburgh, he also got signed today, former Miami running back, that's what I was thinking of. So Miami's running back, Kalen Ballage, he's going to Pittsburgh, which is another, kind of, to me, telltale sign that they're going to be one of the teams to either trade up to get a running back, or they're going to be the one to take the first running back off the board, because I feel like Mike Tomlin and his offense has been able to produce successful running backs, even if they're not Le'Veon Bell status or James Conner that 1 year status. He still, kind of can make a not great running back look great in his offense to do what he needs to do. So I feel like they're going to take the approach this year to just sign depth, go out and get a rookie and hope that he really splashes so that they can have, everything that they need for that offense. Because a lot of people forget that team, even though the schedule last year for them was kind of a cakewalk for Pittsburgh, they still went, 11-0 before they got their first loss or something like that. So Pittsburgh's offense really drove that forward where they were constantly scoring. And if they get a running back in the first round, I think it could be it could be one of the best running backs. It could be Najee Harris or that other running back. I'm drawing a blank on his name as well. But it could be either one of those guys, and that really resets all of Pittsburgh's offense when it comes to what you can do against them. You cover the pass, you try to cover the pass, but they have so many good wide receivers, it's difficult to. So if you have to be scared of the run as well, it turns Pittsburgh into a really, really, good offense, great offense, and their defense is stellar as well. I'm pretty sure they're my number one ranked defense right now on my Dynasty rankings, and they are. So with that, Kalen Ballage to Pittsburgh. Moving on, Bruce Arians came out today and said, we are not sure who our running back is. So this is another one of those teams that have 9 running backs on their roster. Obviously, you don't know who your running back is. Obviously, you don't know what's going to happen. But this is the narrative that we're probably going to get up until week 1. This comment alone, along with them re-signing Leonard Fournette, I'm out. I'm out again on Tampa Bay's backfield. I don't care about them at all this year. I had high hopes for Ronald Jones, but I'm completely out on Tampa Bay's backfield, especially after that comment from Bruce Arians. I wouldn't even be surprised if they go out and draft another running back, and then the backfield and the depth chart is just loaded with talent. Therefore, if it's loaded with talent, then you really have no fantasy value there anyway. So Tampa Bay, no running backs for me this year. I'm completely off of that. So with that, that's the news. Boop, boop, boop. News done. So news is done. With that, moving to Dynasty rankings and all the Dynasty implications and everything that's going on with my gold team. So I'm excited to get to my gold team, but just before we get to that, I also want to mention, if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, share for me or something like that. Thank you guys for supporting the show. And let's get right into the Dynasty good stuff. Now, the Dynasty good stuff is that my rankings, they are finished. You guys, if you're on the YouTube, you can see me looking up to the right over here where my top screen is. This is where I have my rankings always posted. I got my show doc in front of me. So my rankings are finally done, which means you can go in now. They're no longer under construction. The numbers and all the stuff are no longer out of order. Everything is color-coded with tiers. Everything is, spaced out by position. You can go to quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, your defense, your kickers. I even have flex rankings for you guys where, I put every single wide receiver, running back, and tight end in, and then I kind of rank them all together as if I were to be trading places, who I would rather have among all those positions. So obviously, they're still Dynasty rankings, so take that into consideration that these aren't going to be your regular season rankings. This is Dynasty. So this is where I rank these people if I were to have them on a team, and I can have them forever. So if you're looking at this, make sure that you're constantly going through that filter going, oh my God, how could you, rather want Kyler Murray than these guys? Because Kyler Murray is 24 years old. That's why. So, make sure you're always going through that filter that these are Dynasty rankings. But I'm very excited. I finally got them all done. I just need to add rookies in now when the draft happens, but, very excited. Hope you guys like it. Hope you guys check it out and everything. And the link will be below in the description on YouTube. And if you're on Spotify, you're going to have to, navigate over to YouTube and all that stuff. Boom, boom, boom. So my team, my gold team, I'm very excited, guys, because this is one of those teams, one of those parts where I can jump in and I can go, I stuck my flag here, and I said this is going to be a good fantasy player in March, way before we had anything. So going back last year, I had some wins, some losses. Now, my big wins were on quarterback. I said Josh Allen and Kyler Murray were going to be the guys. They ended up being the guys. I had a not-so-great wide receiver trade last year in my dynasty where I was high on DJ Moore. When Teddy Bridgewater came to Carolina, I was all about DJ Moore. I was like, oh, man, DJ Moore is going to get 90 targets a game. He's going to get lit up with targets from Teddy Bridgewater. I didn't expect the Robbie Anderson outcome, so that went up, that blew up in my face. But I actually ended up in that offseason last year trading Calvin Ridley to get DJ Moore. So that hurt me a lot. I'm still champ though, but that one hurt me a lot. So just want to preface that this is one of those teams that I'm about to tell you about now. So if I say a name, please don't message me in August, September, October and be like, hey man, I traded for this guy because you told me to, and now he sucks. Remember, this is free agency, post-free agency, pre-NFL draft. This is for fun, but also things that I'm seeing now, and I'm going, hey, this might be a good time to buy them. And if you agree with my logic, then maybe go out and make a move, see what you can buy them for. But these are people who I am actually staking my flag into and saying that I believe that there is a change coming and an uptick for these people coming into the next year. So if you guys have, any opinions about this before I'm done, any questions, or if you guys have any questions that you want me to answer on the show or talk about on the show, drop them in the comments below. I'll read them. We'll put them on the show, all that stuff. But, remember that this is a very early part of the season before we get going. So bang, bang, boom. Let's get right into it. Now, if you guys know me, I'm a huge fan of wide receivers. I wanted to be a wide receiver when I was a kid growing up. That was my thing. I wanted to catch passes in the NFL and score touchdowns and spike the ball. And hooray. So most of the time, my wide receivers are the people that I really kind of dig into the most and say, these are the ones I'm most confident about. Usually the wide receivers are the ones I'm most confident about. Going back in previous years, I remember when Michael Thomas was with Brandon Cooks, and I was like, oh my God, we need Michael Thomas more. I remember the same thing with, obviously, Davante Adams. I've been a Davante Adams stan for a little while. Anyway, I'm trailing. There's a lot of people throughout past times where they were slept on, and we didn't pick up on them in time. So this is your early on sleepers. Here we go. Bing, bang, boom. Getting right into it. I'm going to skip quarterback because I think quarterback is going to be my most controversial one. And that's going to be the one that people look at me and go, what are you talking about? He is not going on my fantasy team. I get it. I get what you mean. But with that, you might not have to trade for him. You might get him way later in rounds or even on the waiver wire, and he might win you some weeks. So we're going to skip over quarterback. We'll come back to that at the end of the list. I will go through first. I have 2 running backs for you, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a defense, and a kicker. So I got the whole list for you for a 3 wide receiver league. Here we go. Everybody, my running back number 1 on this list is James Robinson, the running back for Jacksonville. And I know some people may be thinking, hey man, how can you put James Robinson up there? He finished like top 10 last year. So obviously he's not a sleeper. Well, I believe that when it comes down to draft time and draft season, James Robinson is going to be that name, like Kenyon Drake, like, David Johnson, who people don't really look at him as a top tier running back 1. Believe it or not, James Robinson is a running back 1. And at the beginning of the year, Jacksonville announced that they will be adding some running back competition to the Jacksonville backfield. And then they went out and signed Carlos Hyde. Now, Carlos Hyde, to me, is absolutely no competition for James Robinson. He's a depth piece. Does that mean that they're going to go out and sign more pieces? Well, yeah, they got some pretty good running back, they got some pretty good ammo to go draft a running back in the late first round. You can get Trevor Lawrence and then go get a running back. But Jacksonville has such wild defense flaws that I feel like they have no choice but to go extremely heavy on that. And when you have somebody like Carlos Hyde as a veteran who, he's not competition for James Robinson, but he's a competent running back who they can trust the ball. They can trust him with the ball. They can give him the ball and they're not going to have to be completely worried about it, that it's going to blow up in their face. So I believe when they say competition, they meant accessory piece. I need an addition onto my backfield. And I think James Robinson goes into next year with the same workload that he, maybe he loses 5 carries to Carlos Hyde, but that's not enough for me to, look away from James Robinson when he was getting, some games, I think he was at 32 carries or something like that, something ridiculous. So if he's losing a couple carries to Carlos Hyde, that's fine to me. And not to mention, you just brought over Marvin Jones. You're going to go get T-Law. You got all these draft picks. I think they brought over, they're another one of those teams who brought over 1 million wide receivers just to see who the better ones at the end of the year are. But Marvin Jones is there. This is going to be a much, much better offense. And as much as people might think, oh, well, if the ball's being passed more, you don't have to feed it to James Robinson 30 times. That's okay. The ball is moving up the field more. If the ball is moving up the field more, James Robinson's in position to score more. So James Robinson, I feel, is another one of those names that's not really on there, and he definitely should be. If I'm in a draft, if I'm in a dynasty draft, I'm taking James Robinson 4th round, 3rd round. Dynasty drafts, dynasty startup drafts. I'm taking him 3rd, 4th round, and that's because in dynasty startup drafts, go wide receiver heavy. Always go wide receiver heavy. They tend to last longer. The shelf life of a running back in dynasty is maybe 2 to 3 years. And that's if now I'm talking for most running backs. Like if you have the Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, you don't trade those guys. That's different. My number 2 running back, and this is a guy that I wrote an article about last year. I said when he came into the league, he was going to be a huge accessory piece. He didn't really pan out to be that massive accessory piece that I, expected him to be in his first year. But he's a rookie, and he had a really good season, in my opinion. And I feel this year will be that stepping point with some new additions to his team in the free agency. He's going to go out there, and he's really going to shine. And he's definitely going to be somebody who I feel is drafted next year in the running back 1 or running back 2 conversation because he is an absolutely top-tier elite athlete. And his name is Antonio Gibson for the Washington Redskins. Now, if you guys followed me last year, I wrote an article on Antonio Gibson, and I said this is going to be the Christian McCaffrey for Ron Rivera. He's going to do absolutely everything. Now, obviously, Washington had so many problems last year, they really couldn't get anything going. They bring over Curtis Samuel. They bring over Ryan Fitzpatrick. They're probably going to grab another quarterback where they can, whatever it may be. But I feel like with just what they grabbed in Ryan Fitzpatrick and Curtis Samuel alone, having Terry McLaurin, having Logan Thomas, the offense is built now enough where you can actually move Antonio Gibson around. You can give him the ball where you need to. You can put him out into the slot. You can trust to move him into motion and stuff like that. So with the offense getting better, I feel Antonio Gibson gets better. He moves another year into the mix. He's another year more integrated into the Ron Rivera's system to be that guy that Ron Rivera wants him to be. And I really feel like Antonio Gibson's going to be somebody who comes out this year. You can get him in the 4th or 5th round, and he's going to return incredible value for you. I've been a huge fan of Antonio Gibson for the since last year. So I'm definitely predicting him to be, top tier by the end of the year where everybody's making you trade offers for him. Moving on to wide receiver. Now, one of the wide receivers, I teased it in an episode a couple weeks ago where I dropped it at the end of the episode. If you listen to the end of the episode, which is actually kind of a trick for Fantasy Daily here. If you want to learn some, secret stuff, you wait to the end of the episode. Or you scrub until the end of the episode and you cheat anyway. That's great too. So my number 1 wide receiver at the top of this list is Justin Jefferson. Now, a lot of people, when I have this debate, they're like, oh, Adam Thielen's better, blah, blah, blah. Even if somebody is to be better than the other, me personally, I believe Justin Jefferson is an elite level athlete who's not really looked at that yet, obviously because he's a rookie. But I feel he is better right now than Adam Thielen, and I don't think it's long till he soaks up the majority of targets because of that, because defenses really still look at Adam Thielen as an elite wide receiver. They're not going to just move the attention over to Justin Jefferson. So being that you have 2 threats on the offense, the defense always needs to worry about. Couple that with Justin Jefferson's amazing talent, the Vikings' okay offense. I think Justin Jefferson really excels to a different level this year and absolutely goes Super Saiyan and ends up in your, wide receiver 2 conversation, and you drafted him in the 6th or 7th round. So Justin Jefferson, I'm all about him this year. Moving on to my wide receiver 2. If you follow me closely, this is a person who I am constantly mentioning in certain things. His name just slips in there when I'm talking about wide receivers and players I like going into next year. Wide receivers that I just, am over the moon about their talent. His name always slips in there, and that's T. Higgins. Now, AJ Green has left town in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is going to be feeling a little bit better. Offensive line pieces are being made. They made a defensive move today. I don't remember exactly what it was. I believe it was a defensive tackle. But Cincinnati is not a bad team. Joe Burrow is a stud quarterback. Tyler Boyd is good. Tyler Boyd, in my eyes, is not wide receiver 1 good, whereas T. Higgins can be. but he won't be looked at that this year. T. Higgins had I don't believe he'll be looked at that this year. He had a lot of success last year, but a lot of his success is in those formats where it's 3 wide receivers out and he can kind of move around as he can. That gives me a little bit of worry going in, but I believe that T. Higgins' talent itself really excels through the season. His connection with Joe Burrow was clearly there as soon as they got there, and both of them being kind of new in the system, I feel that connection will continue going into the next year. Tyler Boyd will draw more, coverage now that he's the number 1 de facto. And I believe T. Higgins is going to be one of those people who goes in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, and he returns you wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 value. Moving on to my 3rd wide receiver, which is probably going to be the most obvious one on the list, and that's why I saved it for last, but he's the person that I'm basically telling everybody you cannot let this guy get past you in round 3 or 4 when you're in drafts, and he's going to do it in a lot of leagues because not a lot of people paid attention to Pittsburgh, and that's Diontae Johnson. I feel not a lot of people talk about Diontae Johnson to the point where he's a dominant wide receiver, you know what I mean? And you hear me talk, okay, he's an elite level athlete. When I say elite level athlete, I mean kind of overall player. He's the player that, can kind of do it all. Whereas Diontae Johnson is an absolute bully. He's not a bully. He's dominant when it comes to running his routes. He's dominant when it comes to when the ball's up in the air, what I know to do in that situation. So he's a really smart player. He's a really good player. He's exciting to watch, and I feel like he's definitely has that connection with Big Ben already to take things to another level going into this year, where I expect Pittsburgh to still be that offense that everybody, might not look at them as, but they are a dominating offense, so I expect him to be there everywhere with Diontae Johnson soaking up the most of those targets. Juju obviously came back, and I know that people might say that, hey, what about Juju? What about Chase Claypool? Chase Claypool, to me, is a borderline wide receiver 1, and I wouldn't be surprised if this argument that I'm making for Diontae Johnson goes directly into Chase Claypool. So you can kind of put them into the same category and kind of tier them off together. But at the same time, I would much rather have Diontae Johnson over Chase Claypool due to his size, due to his, abilities that I feel that I've seen on screen. And I do believe that Juju is reduced to a wide receiver 3, not really active role like we saw him last year, which is sad but true. But, not all careers are meant to be superstar careers. So those are my wide receivers. Just recapping: James Robinson, Antonio Gibson for the running backs. Wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, and Diontae Johnson. My tight end of the year so far, pre-draft, post-free agency, is Anthony Ferkskers. I'll figure out how to pronounce it later on in the year. So Anthony Ferkskers, he's the tight end for the Tennessee Titans. And now I know his name's really not one of those names that pops out to you. He might not even be a name you heard last year. But he had a couple flash games when Jonnu Smith was out. He even had some flash games where Jonnu Smith was in. He had some really hot moments. And it looks like Ryan Tannehill has a rapport with him and has a connection with him that we might see going into next year. Now, Jonnu Smith is gone. Corey Davis is gone. Josh Reynolds they bring into town, which is cool. I'm a big fan of Josh Reynolds. I think that'll actually be, more successful than people think. I think Josh Reynolds has a chance to sneak into a wide receiver 3 conversation this year. But then again, A.J. Brown is just absolutely dominant, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's just an A.J. Brown, Anthony Ferksker, and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. That's all you see all year. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to there. But Ferksker is, to me, the number 1 sleeper on tight end right now because he's going to go undrafted. People aren't going to look at him. He's going to be in like the 12th, 13th, 14th round or something like that. And he could return you tight end 1 volume. Because if there's one thing Ryan Tannehill does constantly, it's look for the tight end in the red zone. If there's one thing Titans are constantly doing, it's being in the red zone. So Anthony Ferksker, actually, currently I have him tight end 6, right in between Evan Ingram and Logan Thomas. So I'm very high on Anthony Ferksker right now. It might change throughout the season if they add another tight end. In the offseason, if they add another tight end. But to me, this is the low-hanging fruit. If you look at all the angles, if you look at all the free agency moves, this is the low-hanging fruit that says I can get this guy for a steal, and he's going to win me a fantasy title if all stars align. Moving on to defense and kicker. And now the defense one is kind of obvious, but I want to, kind of just highlight it because I feel like towards the end of the year, it wasn't as good as we hoped it could be. As far as fantasy value goes, where we were going to pick them up and then we play them and they return 4 points and we're like, crap. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Tampa Bay as defense, I feel like obviously it's a throw-in, whatever, it's a defense, who cares? But I feel like defense going into for Tampa Bay, they re-signed all their starters from the Super Bowl. They got a lot of energy coming in. And I feel like they're one of those teams that can start off hot in the beginning of the season, depending on their schedule. But they're a team who clicks. Clearly, when they click, they make things happen. Bruce Arians wants the defense to do work, so Brady doesn't have to do so much work. So I feel like with getting more pieces in the draft, being a good defense that you were, having a connection, Tampa Bay will be one of those defense that puts up 10 to 12 points consistently, at least to start the season. Going over to kickers. Now, this kicker, for me, I threw in there because it's kind of a double whammy where I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize he went over there. I completely missed that. But at the same time, oh, wow, this is really good for points. And that's Matt Prater in Arizona. So Matt Prater, the old kicker for the Detroit Lions, he is now with the Arizona Cardinals, who are a really good offense, which means they push the ball up the field. Now, if you don't remember, a few years ago when Matt Stafford was really slinging that ball, Matt Prater was one of the best kickers to own in fantasy. And that's because they were constantly in the red zone, and he was beaming every single 50-yard, 40-yard field goal that they had. So now that he's in Arizona, who's constantly in the red zone, he's going to be banging those 50-yarders all the time, 40-yarders all the time. So I think Matt Prater's a huge grab if you're in dynasties or if you're in whatever, and if you even care about kicker that much, Matt Prater's my kicker for this year. Now here it comes. The one that's going to make everybody stop watching my show, and that's why I'm ending the show here today. We only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to end it with this. My quarterback on my gold team, on my pre-NFL draft, my post-free agency, please don't unsubscribe, don't leave. I promise I just want to win you fantasy championships, and I'm just reading the data that's given to me. I've been studying, and it's just what I saw. I'm sorry, it's gross. I know it's gross, but it's true, and it's gonna happen. Everybody, my 2021 quarterback that you're gonna want to own and at least have on your team is Daniel Jones, the quarterback for the New York Giants. And I know a lot of people here are going to be like, what are you talking about? It's not just Kenny Golladay, guys. It's not. It's the fact that the Giants are still a pretty good offense without Kenny Golladay, without Saquon Barkley. So now you're going to give them Saquon Barkley, John Ross. They're going to have Sterling Shepard. They're going to have Darius Slayton. They got Kenny Golladay. Evan Ingram is back. The defense was very good last year. The defense is going to get better, which is going to keep Daniel Jones on the field. Guess what? Daniel Jones can rush the ball. Daniel Jones can rush touchdowns into the end zone. Daniel Jones can throw the ball to his many, many wide receivers. Daniel Jones can give the ball to Saquon Barkley on a shuffle pass, and he takes it to the house. I'm looking at all these numbers and all these possibilities, and when it comes to trying to find a sleeper that nobody's looking at all, you want to find one where all the stars align, and I wanted this to be fake. I wanted to look at this and go, no, I'm missing something here, something's wrong. But it's not. It's really not. And I think it's going to be Daniel Jones who fits into a Dak Prescott sort of role this year. And I don't know where I have Daniel Jones in my rankings. Before we leave, I just want to check, because I know it's low. I haven't moved him since making this discovery. He's at 12 for me, which is right under Matt Stafford and Jalen Hurts. And he might move up to number 10 by the end of the week. By the time the draft rolls around. But that's it for my show, guys. Please don't unfollow me. Please don't unsubscribe. Please like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And when Daniel Jones has a good year, please give me the credit by saying I took this chance by humiliating myself. Everybody, have a good day. See you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.